Section 54 of the Fables of Pilpay. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Read by Thomas Gibby. The Fables of Pilpay by Anonymous. Translated by Abdullah Ibn al-Muqaffa and Joseph Harris. The Dervise and the Four Thieves. A dervise had once made a purchase of a fine fat sheep, with the intent to offer it up in sacrifice. And having tied a cord around the neck of it, he was leading it to his habitation. But as he led it along, 4 thieves perceived him, and had a great mind to steal his sacrifice for less holy uses. They dared not, however, take it away from the dervise by force, because they were too near to the city. Therefore they made use of this stratagem. They first parted company, and then accosted to the dervise, whom they knew to be an honest and inoffensive man, and one who thought of no more harm in others than he had in himself, as if they had come from several distinct parts. Said the first of them, who had contrived to meet him full face, "Father, whither are you leading this dog?" At this instant the second, coming from another quarter, cried to him, "Venerable old gentleman, I hope you have not so far forgot yourself as to have stolen this dog." And immediately after him, the third coming up and asking him whether he would go a-coursing with that handsome greyhound. The poor dervise began to doubt whether the sheep which he had was a sheep or no. But the fourth robber put him quite beside himself, coming up at that instant, and saying to him, "Pray, reverend father, what did this dog cost you?" The dervise, on this, absolutely persuaded that 4 men, coming from 4 several places, could not all be deceived, verily believed that the grazier who had sold him the sheep was a conjurer, and had bewitched his sight, insomuch that he was no longer giving credit to his own eyes. He became firmly convinced that the sheep he was leading was a dog, and immediately, in full persuasion of it, went back to market to demand his money of the grazier, leaving the wether of the felons, who carried it away. "Sir," said Carquinez, "your majesty sees by this example that what cannot be done by force must be achieved by policy." "You advise me well," said the king. "And now tell me, by what invention shall we revenge ourselves on the owls?" "Rely upon me," replied Carquinez, "to take care of your majesty's revenge, and suffer me to sacrifice my own private ease to the public good. Only order my feathers to be pulled off, and leave me all over bloody under this tree, and doubt not but I will serve you an acceptable service." It was no small grief to Baruz to give out such a cruel order. In regard to his excellent minister, however, at his own incessant entreaties, and the king marched away with his army to wait for Carquinez in a place where that vizier had appointed him. In the meantime, night came, and the owls, puffed up with the success of their insolence the night before, returned, intending now, by bloody battle, at once to complete the destruction of the ravens. But they were amazed when they missed the enemy, whom they intended to have surprised. They sought for the ravens' army diligently in every quarter, and in their searches they heard a voice of grievous lamentation, which was the voice of Carquinez, who was groaning at the foot of a tree. The king of the owls, on this, immediately approached him, and examined him concerning his birth. The king of owls, on this, immediately approached him, and examined him concerning his birth, and the employment he had on Baruz's court. "Alas," replied Carquinez, "the condition wherein you see me sufficiently shows you my inability to give you the account which you demand. I have not strength, but alas, to repeat it." "What crime did you commit, then?" replied Chabaeng, "to deserve this hard usage?" "No crime, mighty monarch," replied Carquinez, "but the wicked ravens, upon a slight suspicion only, have used me thus." "After our army," continued he, "was thrown out in terror and affright last night by your bold defiance, King Baruz called a council to seek out ways to be revenged so heinous an affront. And after he had heard the various opinions of some of his ministers, he commanded me to speak mine, at which time I laid before him that you were not only superior in number, but better disciplined, and more valiant than we were, and by consequence it was necessary for us to desire peace, and to accept whatever conditions you would be pleased to grant us. This so incensed the king against me, that, in a violent passion, "Traitor!" cried he, "this is the way to infuse into my army a fear of the enemy, by exalting their strength and lessening mine." And with that, suspecting that I was meditating to make my peace with your majesty, he commanded that I should be used as you see. After Carcenas had done speaking, the King of Owls asked his chief minister what was to be done with him. "The only way, sir," answered the minister, "is to put him out of his pain and knock him on the head. Never trust his fair speeches, for I don't believe a word he says. Remember the old proverb, sir. The more dead, the fewer enemies." Carcenas, on this, in a lamentable tone, cried out, "I beseech you, sir, add not to my affliction by your threatening language." The King of Owls, who could not choose but compassionate Carcenas, now bade the second minister speak, who was not of the first vizier's opinion. "Sir," said he, "I would not advise your majesty to put this person to death. Kings ought to assist the weak, and succor those that throw themselves upon their protection. Besides," continued he, "sometimes there may be a great advantage of an enemy's service, according to the story of a certain merchant, which, with permission, I will relate to your majesty." End of section 54.